5 Steps to Happily Ever After. A very close friend said to me lately, relationships are just too hard. When I think of relationships, I can't just help but thinking problems after problems. Unless you're super lucky that things go your way. And even then, how do you know if a certain person is the one for you? I mean, you do your inner work, you write your list that holds everything you want in a life partner, and you start meeting people, and none of them are really 10 by 10, according to your criteria. Although you can't say that you never liked any of them, in fact you do, a lot sometimes. But sometimes it seems like your heart and your criteria are not going in the same direction. So what do? Do you keep waiting until you find that 10 stars person? And if you do, how do you know that this super person won't just leave you for another someday? Do you just settle with whoever holds moderate score, or do you disregard the list altogether and just go with whom your heart desires? A verb, not a noun. First of all, a relationship is not a thing. Instead, there is the way people relate to each other. In other words, it shouldn't be recognized as a noun, but rather a verb. 2 active verbs, in fact. The way you relate to your partner and the way your partner relates to you. And both are completely determined fundamentally by conscious choices you both make. Luck has nothing to do with it. If you both decide to relate to each other by support, understanding, kindness, and unconditional love in any situation, nothing can ever go wrong. In fact, everything will just seem to bring you closer and closer somehow. And to be able to do that smoothly and easily all the time, you need to be with the right person for you. How do you know the right person for you? This is sort of an eternal question, and everyone seems to have a different answer for it. And I won't claim to have the ultimate answer for it at all. I'm just writing my mere opinion with intention to share some insights, hoping that it might help you find your own answer eventually. So in my opinion, it takes 5 steps to find your happily ever after. Step 1. The inner search. This is where everything starts, inside. For how can you find your perfect match if you don't know what you are matching them to? To know and love someone else, you need to know and love yourself first. Knowing yourself. This is not as simple as knowing your name, your age, or what you do for a living. And it doesn't have anything to do with recognizing yourself in the mirror without a reference. It's taking the necessary actions to delve deeper into your own subconscious mind and putting yourself through all the needed experiences and challenges that will allow you to stretch you beyond your comfort zone and find out what you're really made of. Knowing yourself involves trying, testing, and soul-searching until you understand your weaknesses, strengths, and values, knowing the source of your pain and the cause of your happiness. It's being familiar with all of your sides, the heavenly light parts and the shadowed dark ones. Loving yourself. This can only happen truly after knowing yourself very well and deciding that you accept and love yourself now, exactly as you are, that you appreciate and cherish each and every bit of you, the light and the dark, no discrimination. You can then see that you're a high value worthy person and that you deserve love and devotion of someone who makes your heart sing and fills it with joy and bliss. Then, only then, you'll be able to decide for real what you want in a life partner. You'll know what suits you, makes you happy, and contribute to your path of growth. This is when you start forming your list. Step 2. The list. I always take this list thing with a grain of salt. People usually tend to fill it up with superficial criteria that tells nothing about the true nature of a person. I totally understand the urges to look for a certain physical type, social status, or even ethnic background. But how effective do these appearances really contribute to your happiness? And I'm not saying don't make a list, by all means do. But also ask yourself honestly, what do you need in a partner beyond just being an eye candy or an easy proposal project? Ask yourself, where does the spirit fit into the checklist? That intangible component that makes the uniqueness of a human being and makes life with them a heavenly experience for decades to come. And be sure to only use this list as a guideline and not to take it too seriously to the point that you completely ignore the connection parameters for mere criteria. The connection parameters that I'll be listing next are the real indication that you can have a great relationship with someone, while the list is only a way to be clear about what you want in order to direct your inner attraction to draw people to your life with qualities among your list, and should not be set up as conditions that prevent you from happiness. But that's it for the list. When you do attract someone who looks, sounds, and feels familiar to you because they hold qualities that are desirable for you, don't go back to the list and compare. Instead, go forward directly to the next step. Step 3. Reality versus fantasy. This is the step where you get to know the person, the real them, and not what you imagine them to be. You see, when we meet new people, we tend to form an imagined picture for them in our mind. That's not the real them, but rather a fantasy we expect them to measure up to. And when they don't, and that will always happen because guess what? It's not them. We get shocked, disappointed, and frustrated. We feel tricked, conned, and even cheated. We somehow give ourselves the right to judge them for acting in a certain way, while the reality is we cheated ourselves by this picture we built in our minds for them, and refuse to open our eyes and see the truth. Instead, clear all pictures and let them show you who they really are. Hold all attachments and with an open mind, just watch and listen, hoping to learn the reality of them and see if you can connect to this reality and on which levels. When you finally do, this means that you're ready for the next step. Step 4. The connection parameters. At this stage, you're testing how deep do you connect with that person on 4 different levels. 1. Emotional parameter. This tests how you feel about them on the emotional level. How far and deep can you extend unconditional love towards that person? Do you appreciate their sheer existence? Do you really want to see them happy and safe? Do you genuinely wish them all the best in every aspect, even if it was with someone else and not you? Or do you just feel the desire to own them somehow? Because the moment you do, you'll be setting yourself up for disappointment and heartache. The moment you do, know that it's not about that person at all. It's rather your own issue of inner fear and dissatisfaction. And you know that this isn't love. This is not to be mistaken for longing for them or wanting to be with them in a healthy way. I'm talking about the extreme degree of attaching all of your happiness onto someone else, where you convince yourself that you can never be safe or happy unless you're with them. And these two, my dear, are never bound to anything or anyone outside of yourself. If you can't find them in you, you won't find it anywhere else. 2. Physical parameter. This parameter tests the primary sexual attraction that you feel towards that person. For some reason, people tend to think in one of 2 extreme ways when it comes to this parameter. They either think of this as everything, or they think of it as not at all important. And the reality of it is neither this nor that. Physical attraction is a major necessity here. It's the main difference between friendship and romance. With romantic interests, you naturally expect that this person is going to be your husband or wife, which means that sex is going to be a big part of your relationship. You need to be sure that he or she satisfies your sexual needs, which has a huge impact on the marital life forevermore. Just pay attention to your inner reaction when you meet them or even think of them, and listen openly and attentively to your own body, and it will tell you all you need to know loud and clear. 3. Intellectual parameter. This tests how compatible you are with them on the intellectual level. How engaging is your conversations? Can you both speak your minds freely with each other? Do you have enough shared interests? And how open are you both to listen to each other talking about other interests that you don't share or even try it sometimes? Can you both handle differences in your opinions if they appear with open mind, respect, and understanding? How long can you hold a conversation non-stop? And how enriching and stimulating these conversations can be. Are you generally on the same page? Or are there a lot of fundamental differences in your ideas and opinions and point of views? And to test this, you need to be really honest with them and with yourself. Don't try to win them over by just agreeing with them. This will just lead you to lose yourself, then lose them eventually, because guess what? No one wants to marry their mere reflection. Except, of course, a narcissistic psycho that you really don't want to be with. 4. Spiritual parameter. This tests the level of spiritual comfort and familiarity that you feel when you first meet someone. Spirits have a mystic way of recognizing each other, and when they do, they can feel deep connection to complete strangers very quickly. This is usually mistaken for what it's called love at the first sight, while it's not really love. Love is the result of getting to know someone, not the motivation. It's what happens at a later stage after you're done with all 5 steps. Humans are the only multidimensional beings on Earth, and for that we possess many other senses beyond the physical 5, with which we can detect our compatibility with other spirits. Some people don't care much about this parameter, but for me it's very important, because when you find a person with whom you're connected on a spiritual level, life gets really magical. Step 5. The choice. This is yet another parameter you need to test, but as very important as it is, I wanted to separate it from the rest, because counter to the last 4, this parameter is completely conscious in nature. Once you are sure of your own choice, you also need to know early on how decisive are they when it comes to choosing you. Do they want to be with you forever and ever no matter what? Do they choose you now, with no restrictions nor conditions? Or are they reluctant in their decision? Believe it or not, some people actually find their perfect partner and then choose to let them go. Why? Many complicated reasons. I won't be speaking about them all, but to mention a few. 1. Self-esteem, self-worth, and self-love. They don't consider themselves worthy or deserving of such a wonderful relationship. They don't love themselves enough to take decisions that will obviously make them happy. Instead, they subconsciously sabotage any chance for their happiness and stay as they are. 2. Guilt and perceived karmic debt. They are too wrapped up in their deep feeling of guilt for any reason. They deeply believe that they deserve pain and suffering, so they do just that. God bless their souls until they learn to forgive themselves first. There is very little chance that they can ever feel any sense of comfort. 3. Superinflated ego. And what I mean here by ego is the false self, the outer shell that people often use to hide behind, thinking that if they get this thick enough, their inner wounds will stop hurting. It's all the outer circumstances that they trick themselves to believe that fixing it will make them happy. and they won't have to look inside or face their inner demons, the thing that most people so carefully avoid. Some people are so blinded by these fake superficial parameters like mere appearances, physical beauty, money, and status. They focus on this type of criteria when forming their list, which they take too seriously, and completely disregard the connection parameters that is meant to give them the real idea of how happy they can be with that person. They feel the connection and can see it clearly, but they just discard all that because it doesn't fit into their superficial list of expectations. These people will learn the hard way that happiness isn't there. If you're ever to find yourself in a situation where you had to deal with someone who's deluded with his or her ego to the point that pushes them to be unsure about you, rest assured that they will soon understand their poor judgment. But until they do, you need to be kind enough to yourself and just move on with a deep and unshakable notion that you deserve someone who is as sure about you as you are about them. Your perfect soulmate is still out there somewhere, waiting exactly like you're waiting for them. What you deserve is someone who chooses you with all their might, no hesitation and no second guessing. If you solemnly choose someone, then it's only fair that they solemnly choose you. If they don't, then just move on. Life is built upon abundance, and if you believe that and keep your heart open for love, you'll soon meet someone else who will satisfy all of your 4 parameters, and in the same time chooses you in the same persistence by which you choose them. Once you're clear about all these aspects, there's nothing more to think of. Just be brave and take the step further. Open your heart and get ready to embark on the most beautiful and exciting journey with your other half towards your happily ever after.